In the immortal words of Kevin Green, it is time. Training camp is freaking here. Welcome in, everybody, to an all-new Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Make sure to give those likes, subscribe, 5-star reviews, whatever you can do to support the show. Tell a friend about it. And of course, check out those Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube memberships as well. It is training camp. We are here. It is taking place this morning, 10:30 a.m. And what more could you possibly want in life than a Green Bay training camp in the confines of Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, or at least near 1265 Lambeau Field. There's going to be bikes. There's going to be fans. It is going to be freaking epic, and I cannot freaking wait. And I know there may be some of you who have maybe taken a little time off from the Packers, maybe taken a little bit of time off from the Pack-A-Day podcast. And maybe you're just starting to get back in the swing of things now that there's actual real Green Bay Packers football to talk about. Now, some people aren't really as much on the draft bandwagon and don't care about it as much until they actually get to see the players. I get it, understand it. I get some people once, mini camp ends or maybe once the draft ends, they need a little time away from the team. You're crazy. I don't understand you at all, but I'll give you a pass nonetheless. I totally get it in all actuality. And maybe now, like I said, that there's actual football to talk about, you're kind of coming back out of your hibernation and you are ready for Packers football again. If that is you, well, welcome back. And we're going to cover everything that you need to know about this Packers training camp. And if you've been here the whole freaking time, take the day off. I'm just kidding. Stick around. Of course, we're going to still cover everything that you need to know about Packers camp. I'm sure there's going to be some things that we've probably covered in some capacity already, but that's okay. You always can use a refresher. And guess what? As soon as practice is over today, I'm going to be uploading a quick hit video of all the quick things that you need to know from practice. And then, of course, we'll have the full breakdown of today's practice tomorrow as well. So there will be plenty of content for everyone, I promise you. But let's get into everything that is going on, everything that we should be watching for, everything you need to know about this Packers training camp. And let's start with the main thing, all of the starting roster battles. There are starting spots on this team that are up for grabs that will be defined based off of this training camp and preseason. Let's start in an interesting spot with the starting wide receivers. This is one that I probably care about the least because I think all of these wide receivers are going to receive playing time in some capacity, and I think they're going to rotate through these players, right? We're probably going to see a lot of Watson, Wicks, Reed, and Dobbs with a smattering of Bo Melton and maybe a little bit of Malik Heath here and there. But I think there will be at least a slight differentiator for who are their wide receivers 1, 2, and 3. Who primarily are the 3 wide receivers in their 3 wide receiver sets? Who are their 2 wide receivers in their 2 wide receiver sets? And like I said, there's going to be some rotation here, but I do think maybe look at it less as a who's 1, 2, 3, like who is going to earn more snaps. I do think there are snaps up for grabs. And I do think those snaps are going to be precious commodities when you have an offense that is chock full of playmakers, and every little thing you do could be the difference between having 800 to 900 snaps on the season and having 500 to 600 snaps on the season. And that is a pretty significant difference. And there are not only snaps up for grabs, who Jordan Love trusts the most. Yes, he's going to go through his reads and his progressions. We have seen that, but sometimes you get a little bit more of a feel for certain wide receivers. And again, the guys he trusts the most are the guys that he's going to want on the field the most, or maybe looks their way a few more times or a little bit more often. So I do think, while this may not be your traditional who's a starter, who's not a starter, these guys are going to rotate in quite a bit. I do think there are snaps up for grabs, and the maybe primary receiver spots could be a little bit more important and get a few more of those snaps this upcoming season. Next is the offensive line. There are probably 4 players that are fighting for 3 spots along this offensive line. Elton Jenkins and Zach Tom are going to be starting. We know that. But then you get Rasheed Walker, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, and Jordan Morgan. And those 4 are going to make up the 3 other spots, with a very extremely likely starting spot going to Josh Myers, which probably leaves 3 players for 2 spots, with Sean Ryan, Rasheed Walker, and Jordan Morgan competing for those spots. But either way, there are at least 2, if not 3 spots up for grabs. And where they are actually located along the offensive line could be up for debate or up for grabs as well. Put it easier, where each of those linemen actually line up is going to be very interesting, and it could go in a variety of different directions. Now, we did a whole episode dedicated to this that you can check out if you haven't done so as of yet, but there are a variety of combinations that could get involved in actually making up the starting lineup here. We also have to remember Zach Tom is coming off of an injury. We don't exactly know quite yet when he's going to be back. We also know Andre Dillard has gotten some looks with the starters in OTAs and minicamps. I think that is mostly due to the Zach Tom injury, but maybe he gets his name in the conversation. As much as nobody really wants to say it, Royce Newman has been a full-time starter for this offense in the past. He could get his name in the conversation, or maybe you've got a Jacob Monk or a Travis Glover, a rookie that comes out of nowhere, or who knows, maybe it could be somebody totally different like a Kadeem Telfort or a Donovan Jennings. There are a lot of possibilities here, and there are definitely spots up for grabs. Next up, that number 2 linebacker spot. Is it probably almost insanely likely to be Edgerrin Cooper? Yes, he's probably going to be that guy. I'd be willing to put a pretty decent penny on Edgerrin Cooper being your number 2 linebacker barring injury, but he's still going to have to earn it. And while he is very much the leader in the clubhouse and probably the 90 to 95% likely winner of that spot, Tyron Hopper drafted just a round after him. I don't think Green Bay is going to politic and be like, well, Tyron Hopper's playing better, but Edgerrin Cooper was an earlier draft pick by a round, so we got to go with Cooper. Is he going to be given every opportunity to earn that starting spot, meaning Edgerrin Cooper? Yeah, probably. But if Tyron Hopper or Isaiah McDuffie just outplay him, there's at least a chance, at least a possibility that one of those guys could get their name in the conversation. And even beyond that, even if you have Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker as your top 2 linebackers, you are battling for the 3rd spot in the 4-3, and that could be Tyron Hopper. We saw obviously Isaiah McDuffie get some work with those linebackers, and Eric Wilson get some work with those linebackers in the base defense in OTAs and mini camps as well. So all of those that spot specifically is up for grabs. And I'll even go a step further. The dime linebacker spot. Do I expect it to be Quay? I do. I do expect that to be Quay, at least to start with. But do I think it's completely improbable or impossible that Edgerrin Cooper could earn that job and take over for Quay and be the linebacker in this defense? I think that's possible as well. Next up, number 2 corner. Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine, probably fighting for that mano-a-mano, one-on-one. Maybe Corey Ballantyne can get his name in the conversation. Maybe if Kalen King was just all of a sudden having a ridiculous camp, he could get his name in the conversation. But this, in all likelihood, is Eric Stokes versus Carrington Valentine. We saw 2 practices in OTAs, and in OTAs specifically because Jair didn't do minicamp. So we saw 2 practices in OTAs where both Jair and Stokes and Valentine were all practicing. Specifically, Jair would be the one here. But in those 2 practices, it was Jair and it was Eric Stokes, the starter opposite of him. But the Packers have been extremely complimentary towards both Stokes and Valentine. Both of them can earn that job. Stokes has been a starter. Valentine has been a starter. And they need best guy. It can't be, well, Stokes was a 1st-round pick, so we'll give it to... No, they need their best guy out there from day one. Because guess what? Day 1 is Devontae Smith, and day 1 is A.J. Brown. You better be ready day 1 to go up against those top-tier wide receivers, because if not, you're going to get burnt. So they better have that number 2 corner job set and ready to go, and that player better be ready, because that is a tough week 1 matchup. And as we went over in a members only episode recently of the top players that Green Bay is going to face this upcoming year, it is receiver after receiver after receiver after receiver. They face some of the league's best this upcoming year at that position, and that number 2 corner spot is going to be extremely, extremely important. The next one is number 2 safety. Sort of similar to the number 2 linebacker spot here, and that is Javon Bullard. Very likely leader in the clubhouse to earn that job. In OTAs and minicamps, it was primarily Anthony Johnson Jr. with Bullard getting some looks. Saw a little bit of Evan Williams. We haven't seen any of Katano Ladapo yet. So those players all maybe involved in the conversation. I don't think Zane Anderson or Benny Sapp or anyone else has a real opportunity here. I think Oladapo will probably be behind the 8 ball a little bit, just not being able to practice at OTAs and minicamp. So I'm going to say this probably comes down to Bullard versus Anthony Johnson Jr. versus Evan Williams. But similar to the Cooper and Hopper conversation, if Evan Williams is just better, this is a player they moved up for in the 4th round. If Evan Williams is better, they'll go with him. And they've already started Anthony Johnson Jr. there as the sort of default starter, I think as a placeholder, not wanting to give a rookie a job sooner rather than later. But if Anthony Johnson Jr. just doesn't give it up, at least it's somewhat possible as well. Improbable, probably, but not impossible. Bullard, I would, again, be willing to put a pretty penny that Bullard's going to be your starter opposite Xavier McKinney. I think they're going to make up a really good tandem in the secondary, in the back end of that secondary, but that is a battle going on as well. And then the less sexy positions, kicker, long snapper. Kicker is going to be very important. You got 3 players currently vying for that kicker spot and 2 players fighting for that long snapper spot in Peter Bowden, the rookie undrafted free agent out of Wisconsin, and Matt Orzik, the incumbent starter from a season ago. So all of these are starting spots that are up for grabs, sort of the wide receivers, but the offensive line has 2 to 3 spots available. Number 2 linebacker, number 2 corner, number 2 safety, kicker, and long snapper. And then you have sort of some of the back of the roster battles. At quarterback, who's quarterback 2, who's quarterback 3, and do you keep 3 quarterbacks? Michael Pratt, Sean Clifford, their battle will have a huge say in who wins the number 2 job and if they actually go ahead and keep 3 quarterbacks or not. Running back, number 3 running back / number 4 running back. Would they keep 4 running backs? Probably not, but not impossible. I could see a world in which Emmanuel Wilson has a fantastic camp, as does A.J. Dillon, and they just keep all 4. I think they could do that. I've already mentioned Jarvion Howard as somebody who I think could be one of the darlings of training camp and be, maybe one of those, undrafted free agents that everyone falls in love with. Maybe he could get his name in the conversation. But I think this is probably 3 running backs. And then the question remains, can a Jarvion Howard or an Emmanuel Wilson move past A.J. Dillon for that number 3 spot? Probably not likely. But again, I think because of some of the things that we've mentioned in the past, the age, the years of control, and the contract, the paying less money, the cheaper, I think if they get close, could be a little bit more in that conversation. Back end of wide receiver. We talked about those top 4. Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, and Watson, probably your top 4. I think Melton pretty locked in as your number 5, while also getting some playing time. Heath likely the 6, but if there's a spot that's up for grabs, it's probably number 6. And it's not impossible that Heath could earn his way over Bo Melton maybe as well. But I think that 5, 6, 7 spot, would they keep 7 wide receivers? It's probably going to take something spectacular from a Samori Toure, a Grant Dubose, or one of the undrafted guys. It's more likely that they keep 6, but if one of these guys can just have a massive camp, you never know. And then again, I don't think it's quite a lead pipe lock that Malik Heath makes the team, and maybe a Dubose, probably specifically would need to be Dubose, that would go out and have a massive camp. Maybe he could overtake Malik Heath. Remember, Dubose, a 7th round pick from a season ago, Malik Heath, an undrafted free agent. Heath, the likely one there, but there's still some battle to be won there if you're Malik Heath or sort of the back end of that receiver roster. Tight end number 3 and 4. I would say Ben Sims, very likely to get that number 3 spot, but Tyler Davis will be involved in the conversation, mostly because of his special teams ability. And, Tyler Davis was having a really nice camp last year before the injury, which is a huge bummer. We know how Rich Bisaccia feels about him. Again, he's a core special teams guy there. And again, does bring some value as a receiver, gives effort as a blocker. I don't think there's a real world in which Davis makes it as the 3 and Sims doesn't make it. I think they hold on to Sims no matter what, but maybe you could have a world in which Davis earns the 3 and Sims is relegated to the 4. Or you could just end up with Sims being the 3 and Davis doesn't make the team. That's very possible as well. But either way, some work to be done there for those number 3 and 4 tight ends. The entire backup offensive line, all of those spots, who's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, maybe 10th guy, and then just fighting for roster spot on the 53. I think they could keep anywhere between 9 and 10, maybe even 11 if things fell the right way. Guys like Luke Tenuta, Caleb Jones, Kadeem Telfort, Donovan Jennings, Royce Newman, all these guys fighting for spots. Travis Glover and Jacob Monk probably make it as rookies, but Glover, late 6th round pick, not a guarantee there. There's going to be a lot of competition for those spots, and it is going to take everything from all of those guys to try to make it because there is that level of competition there. And like I said, I mean, almost all those guys I just mentioned could get involved as high as maybe the 4th or 5th starter on the line, or as low as just not making the team at all and having to settle for getting claimed somewhere else, going somewhere else, or maybe making the practice squad. So a lot of competition along the offensive line. Defensive end, that number 5 spot, probably going to Brenton Cox. You've got your top 4, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, LVN, and Kingsley Enagbare. But that number 5 spot, Brenton Cox in the lead, but there's a lot of competition on the roster. Aaron Mosby, Deslin Alexander, we can go on, but there's quite a few guys who can play that edge rusher position that's actually on the roster. Likely to be Brenton Cox, or they could just keep 4 too. That's another interesting one. Linebacker, how you slot those number 3, 4, 5, 6. We kind of talked about this one already, but especially the back end, Eric Wilson, Christian Welch, how do you sort of sort those out? Do you keep 5? Do you keep 6? Those are going to be up for grabs. Corner, talked about this one a little bit as well, but 5, 6, 7. I think they probably keep 6. I think 5 is probably Ballantyne. I think 6 is probably Kalen King, but don't rule out Robert Rochelle. I think he could get his name in the conversation due to his ability as a bigger corner and his special teams ability. I think that Kalen King, Robert Rochelle battle could legitimately be a battle. I don't think Kalen King just outright wins it, meaning he gets the job no matter what. But those are going to be interesting conversations and battles to be won and or lost as well. And then safety. Who's your 2? Who's your 3? Who's your 4? Who's your 5? Who's your 6? And 5 and 6 might be practice squad guys, or this is going to be another interesting one. I think that number 5 spot's the real intriguing one. You've got the 4 guys are not going to go anywhere. You've got Xavier McKinney and the 3 rookies. Those guys are locks. So the 5th, do you want somebody like Anthony Johnson Jr. who has more potential as a safety? Or do you want somebody like Zane Anderson or Benny Sapp who are going to be an immediate big-time special teams player right away? Those are going to be interesting conversations. And we talked about the special teams battles already. So these back of the roster battles are going to be ultra intriguing as well. And then you have a variety of storylines throughout the course of the team as well. Jeff Hafley, new defense, new scheme, how these guys are lining up. That is going to be a major talking point of this training camp and preseason. Not just how guys are lining up and how they're utilizing some of these players, but how they look, how they're playing against Jordan Love's offense, and how they play in preseason. And we will wildly jump to conclusions. If they struggle against Jordan Love, well, the defense, same old, they're going to suck, etc. And if all of a sudden they're, dominating against Jordan Love and they go out and are amazing in the preseason, well, they did it. They found it. They got a top 5 defense. And of course, it's all going to be predicated on how they actually play in the regular season. But this defensive scheme and how Jeff Hafley coaches these guys, it'll be a front and center topic of discussion through the entirety of the offseason. Of course, you've got your big free agent signings as well. Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. We got glimpses of them in OTAs and minicamp, but we haven't really been able to see them in any true capacity. We should get a much better look in training camp to what these 2 players in particular are going to be able to bring to this roster, and that will be a storyline as well. Of course, as it always is, injuries will be another one. You already have some pec injuries to Zach Tom and Tucker Kraft. You've got some other players who were, a little bit banged up. Alex Magoo, again, not sure how much that one matters, but Alex Magoo is banged up. We'll see what that, actual injury list goes in to the first day of camp. Kitano Ladapo is another one. But more importantly, can you get through camp with a limited amount of injuries and guys being able to practice through the vast majority of it? We know that injury list is going to pile up at some point. We know that there's going to be guys that are going to miss some practices, but can you limit it? And which guys are hurt? You don't want any significant injuries before the season even starts. The preseason conversation, do you play guys? Do you not play guys? These are all things that, again, will be storylines, and injuries are always going to be a topic, especially this time of year, as you try to do everything in your power to be healthy for week one. Key performances, there's going to be guys that stand out. Those will be huge topics of discussion. Cult heroes, there will be undrafted free agents. There'll be new Lindsey Pipkins and new Raven Greens and new Tim Boyles, and we'll find new guys to fall in love with, and what level they can actually help the team will, TBD. But there will be cult heroes, and of course, we will cover them ad nauseum, nonstop, no matter what. Jordan Love, he's going to get a brand new contract. And again, I'm recording this one early because I'm doing some travel before training camp kicks off. I'll be back Sunday night, but I wanted to make sure, just in case I had some late travel plans, that I had an episode ready to go for Monday, no matter what. But hopefully, again, as you're listening to this in the future, Jordan Love's contract's already done, but he's the new, or either is or will be, the new one of the highest paid players in the NFL. How does he look? How does he respond? Does he carry over from last year? His play will be under the microscope and will be another huge talking point and storyline through the course of this training camp. And if by some chance or some case, he has not yet signed his contract, well, guess what? That is going to be a major storyline as well. And then all the different rotations, the safety rotations, the offensive line rotations. Do Javon Bullard and Evan Williams get time in the slot? Does Colby Wooden continue to play defensive tackle and defensive end? Like, this is a team that likes their rotations, that likes their versatility. Which players get moved around, which players stay in specific spots, those will be storylines to watch out for as well. Then there's players to watch. I put this list together for a members only episode, but these are the players I'm excited to see come training camp. We'll be keeping a little bit of an extra eye on. Brenton Cox looked phenomenal in OTA and minicamp. Can he carry that over to training camp? Edgerrin Cooper caught everyone's eye. Explosive. Pads come on. Can he carry that over? Can he be a big-time player at linebacker for them right away? Or does that learning curve kick in come training camp, and do we see a different player in training camp than we did in OTA and minicamp? Javon Bullard, same sort of thing. I don't think to the same extent as Cooper, but somebody I think everyone's super excited about. Probably going to earn that starting safety spot sooner rather than later, and I want to see what he can bring to the table. Marshawn Lloyd, another player, phenomenal during OTA and minicamp. I want to see if he can continue that with the pads on, and if he can be a legitimate playmaker for this offense. Tucker Kraft, coming back from injury. I'm in love with the way Tucker Kraft played at the end of last year. Still don't think he's getting the credit that he deserves for the way he played in the second half of last season. He was really, really, really good. And I believe he is ready to take a significant next step. I'm hoping he gets back to practice sooner rather than later. Obviously not putting him at risk in any way, but he can be a big time player for this offense. And I think he's ready to take a leap for this offense. And I want to see him get out there, and I want to see what he can do. Of course, Bo Melton. I'm going to put Bo Melton on the list. LVN, can he take that step? There's a long way to go for him to reach his potential. Can he start that path come training camp? Jordan Morgan, first round pick. They're going to need him at some point this year. Does he get his name in the starting conversation, or is it just clear that everyone else is just a little bit more ready? He has a ways to go. He did not look anywhere near ready in OTA or minicamp. That doesn't mean anything. He could clearly take a step in camp, but he's going to need to. Kenneth Odumegwu, somebody I sort of wrote off as a cool story, pet project, probably not going to amount to anything. He crushed it in OTAs and minicamp. He's barely played football for a year. In fact, at that point, I don't think he had played football for a year, and he was racking up sacks in OTAs and minicamp. Can he carry that over? I'm intrigued. Color me intrigued with Kenneth Odumegwu. And then Katan Oladapo. I haven't seen any of Katan yet. I'm excited to see Katan. I want to see Katan. So give me some Katan Oladapo as well. I want to see what he can do, because he's the only rookie where I haven't got to see any of him whatsoever, because he was out all of OTA in a minicamp, excuse me. Next one, contract negotiations. I talked about this. I'm recording from the very past, very early Tuesday morning. So if Jordan Love's contract is done, we don't need to talk about it. If it's not, that's a talking point. That will be something that is a key component of this camp. But even if Love's is done, then that's going to transition over to Kenny Clark. If that's done too, well, then awesome. I love that you are living in a future that Kenny Clark and Jordan Love contracts are already done. I am not living in that future currently. I am living in a current present Green Bay Packers that neither of those contracts are done. But either way, my guess is at minimum, Kenny's is probably still not done, and that will be a conversation as well. What else do we got here? The actual practice schedule itself. Practices start at 10:30 a.m. If there is good weather, they will be open to the public on the days of July 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 30th, and 31st, and August 1st, 6th, 7th, 13th, 14th, 20th, and 22nd. August 22nd is the last open session of training camp practice. August 3rd will be family night. They have joint practice sessions in Denver with the Broncos on August 16th, and their final training camp practice August 22nd in Green Bay against the Baltimore Ravens. The preseason schedule, August 10th, 3:25 on a Saturday, they will play the Cleveland Browns, an away game. August 18th, 7 p.m. on a Sunday, they will play the Broncos, also an away game. And then August 24th, 12 p.m. on a Saturday, they will play the Ravens at home. Cutdown day is 3 p.m. Central Time, Tuesday, August 27th. Some of those cuts will probably start to happen before that, probably the end of the weekend and on that Monday as well. But everything needs to be done 3 p.m. Central Time on the 27th. And of course, the first game of the regular season, Friday, September 6th, against the Eagles in Brazil, 7:15 Central Time kickoff. It cannot get here soon enough, although I am not wishing away this fun training camp and preseason process. What I am most excited for in training camp, Jordan Love. I want to see if he can continue the step, the pretty monumental step that he took a season ago. I cannot wait to see him in his second year as a full starter with, I think, much more confidence, going up against a new defense. I just want more Jordan Love. I'm excited for it. I cannot wait for it. And that is going to be something that I'm truly excited to watch in this upcoming camp. Edgerrin Cooper, Marshawn Lloyd, Javon Bullard, those three rookies in particular, I think can make a big impact this year. Want to see how they're looking in training camp. Xavier McKinney, this is a big time player that they acquired in free agency. Want to see what he can bring to the back end of that defense. And then honestly, truthfully, just being back at training camp. One of my absolute favorite times of the year. Hope springs eternal. Green and gold. You hear the pads, you hear everything. I know they're not going to be in pads on day one, but I am sitting here again. For me, recording this on the Tuesday ahead of time, still about a week away. I can't wait. I cannot freaking wait to be back on those sidelines. It's going to be absolutely epic. And you know me, I'm going to be tweeting absolutely everything that I see. I will tweet it out for you guys so I can be the eyes and ears out there for you. Hopefully many of you guys can get to training camp itself. It's an awesome time of year. Yes, it's going to be hot in the stands. Bring something to fan yourself off with. Bring plenty of fluids and water. But it's the absolute best. I cannot freaking wait. It's going to happen today as you're listening to this. And like I said, I will have an immediate episode up as soon as practice is over, as soon as I can get home, record that episode and upload it with everything that you need to know. Well, at least the key takeaways. And then the next morning will be everything that you need to know from that particular practice. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Shea Bradad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donna Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Dan Miller, Alex Wong, Arnoldo Espinoza, Peter Ataka, Caleb Cookster, and SoCal Pack. Get your phones ready. You know you're not going to be doing anything at work today other than scrolling those tweets of everything that's going on at camp. I will talk to you guys soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.